My name's Zach, and I'm going to walk you through how to connect your Amplitude data to Bigquery and to Zing. What that's going to allow you to do is analyze any of your user information stored in Amplitude from your mobile device on iOS or Android, as well as the web. You'll also be able to benefit from Zing's really easy collaboration features. To get started, we're going to take a look at Amplitude's documentation about how to connect Amplitude to Bigquery. This will export all the events that are stored in Amplitude to Bigquery so that Zing can then connect to it. There's a couple steps. First, we need to make sure we have a Bigquery project already set up and turn on the appropriate APIs that will allow Amplitude to access our Bigquery project. You can access this link, which points you to the right spot in the Google documentation, from Amplitude's documentation, which I'll link in the comments below. So we're going to go and enable the Bigquery API and the data transfer API. So you can just click these buttons. So when you click those buttons and go select our project, we'll see that we actually have a blue button to enable the API, or in my case, I've already enabled the Bigquery API and the Bigquery data transfer API. And we can see that with this little green check mark here. Great. So we've done the first step of creating a Bigquery project and enabling the appropriate permissions for the APIs. The next thing we need to do is create a service account. This is how Amplitude connects to Bigquery and kind of authenticates into it. And to do that, we need to give Amplitude some specific permissions. So we're going to go to our Google Cloud Console and then going to Identity and Access Management. And then we're going to go to Roles. We're going to hit Create Role at the top here. And we'll give this new role that we're creating a special name. So we hit Create Role, and now we're going to give it a custom name. We'll call it Amplitude to Bigquery Data Transfer. And then we will hit Add Permissions. And let's go look at the permissions that Amplitude tells us we need to enable. So bigquery.transfers.get, we can just copy that and paste it, actually not into the top portion where you filter permissions by role, but instead where you enter property names, because these are specific permissions. Great, so we add transfers.get. Let's see what the other permissions are, transfers.update and datasets.update. Great, so we've now created these 3 permissions within this new custom role we created, and we hit create at the bottom to set that live. Now we're going to go to service accounts along the left side of our console navigation under IAM and admin, and that's where we're going to create this service account for Amplitude. So we hit create service account, and we'll call it Amplitude to Bigquery service account. Great. We hit create and continue, and then we're going to give it some specific roles. So the first is a Bigquery user role. The second is a BigQuery data editor role. And the third is this custom role that we created, which we called Amplitude to BigQuery data transfer role. Great. We now have these three roles added as outlined in the Amplitude documentation: BigQuery user, BigQuery data editor, and then this custom role with these three subpermissions. And we're going to hit continue. And then we're going to hit done. Now that we've created this service account, we want to get the keys for it. So we click actions on it, and then we click manage keys. We're going to hit add key so that we can get the JSON that we will then provide to Amplitude. We hit add key and then create new key. And we specify a key type of JSON. Then hit create. This downloads that JSON file for our service account. Great. Now we're all set up from the Google BigQuery side. We're going to take this JSON file that we just saved and go over to Amplitude. We'll log into Amplitude. And now that we're in Amplitude, we're going to go to the top here and see where it says Analytics. We're going to go down to where it says Data and click on Data. From there, under this Connections subheader, we're going to click Destinations. And we're going to add a new destination. You can see in my case I already have set this up, but I'll reset it up from scratch. So I click Add Destination. And then I click BigQuery. And then I can specify a couple attributes about how I want my data export to work, like how frequently I want these updates to happen, and if I want to merge, pull in all the merged Amplitude IDs. So if I have multiple Amplitude IDs of a user over time, Amplitude can automatically merge those, and I can choose how that works. I can also specify what the table IDs and some of the other details will look like. I'm going to hit next. And in this dataset field, I'm going to specify how I want this dataset from Amplitude to be named in BigQuery. So I'll call this Amplitude to BigQuery. But I could name it anything I'd like. And then I'm going to upload the JSON file that I just got from Google BigQuery to access my service account. Great. So define the dataset name, uploaded my service account key, and I've already set up the appropriate roles for that service account that are outlined here on the right. We'll hit next, and Amplitude will connect to Google BigQuery and make sure that it's able to successfully create a data set, edit a data set, delete a data set. And you do want to make sure that you wait for it to verify access and get to the success state. However, it will take up to an hour for Amplitude to propagate data over to BigQuery. And so if you go and try to access your Amplitude data in BigQuery right now, it won't be there yet. You need to wait an hour or so. Once you've waited an hour or so, you'll see that there'll be a latest export time on the connection that you just created, and you'll see all the historical updates with the automatic exports. One other thing you may want to do is backfill your historical Amplitude data. So I could go back, let's say, and pull in the previous 2 months of data, and then hit Start Backfill. And that will propagate all the previous data over to BigQuery. Again, this can take up to an hour for all the backfill and propagation to start happening. So we're going to wait for that to happen. And then once that happens, we'll actually be able to see that data exist in BigQuery, and we can now connect Zing to it. So to connect Zing to it, we'll go to Zing, zingdata.com, and hit login. We log into our Zing account. And we're going to specify that we want to add a connection from Google BigQuery. So we go and hit Setup. And it asks us for a project ID, dataset ID, and service account. So we're going to create another service account for Zing that's going to give us the permissions to view and use that data that's in BigQuery. Now, Zing has helpful information about how to do that. So we can go to Zing and type in Zing BigQuery and go to those docs. Or you can just go to docs.getzingdata.com. And we see that we're going to need to create a service account with BigQuery viewer rights and BigQuery job user rights. So we'll do that right now. We go back over to our Google Cloud console, and we're going to go to service accounts. Then we're going to hit create service account, and we'll call this Zing to BigQuery, or BigQuery to Zing, I guess. Great. Create and continue, and then add those two roles. So we had BigQuery job user, and then we had another role, which is BigQuery viewer. Great. And then we hit done. And we're going to click on actions for the BigQuery service account we just created. And then we're going to go to manage keys. We're going to add a key of type JSON and hit create. You'll see we've now just downloaded the service account JSON that Zing is going to use to connect to our account. We'll also need our project ID. And our project ID we can access just by clicking the top portion here and going and looking at the ID field. So we'll drop in our project ID. We'll open the JSON that we just downloaded from Google Cloud Console. And we can open that in just like a text editor. And we'll paste that text into the service account field. Now, this dataset ID that we need to specify is the dataset ID that we set up when we created our Amplitude to BigQuery connection. And so that's Amplitude _2 BigQuery, but in your case, it will be whatever you decided to name it when you were specifying your dataset ID in Amplitude a couple minutes ago. Great. So now we're going to paste that in as our dataset ID and hit check connection. Again, if we haven't waited an hour yet for Amplitude to do its initial data sync, then this step is likely to fail. So make sure you wait at least an hour for Amplitude to do its first data sync to BigQuery. And then you can hit check connection and confirm. Great. So now we've allowed time for Amplitude to do its first export to BigQuery, and that will continue on a regular basis because we set it to update every 10 minutes. And we can see it's correctly configured here and is in our list of data sources. We're now good to go start querying it. We can do that via the Zing iOS app, the Zing Android app, or the Zing web app. Since we're already here on web, I'm going to hit Zing app at the top. And then I'm going to go to sources. I could also see from my home screen under tables here, the tables that I've just pulled in. But for the sake of seeing it really explicitly, I'll go here, look at my most recently imported data source, which is Amplitude export, and then I see this table of events. So I can query this now from my phone or from the web. I can just tap the fields. So let's say I want to see all the events that happened in the last day. Well, I could do that by just specifying that I want, maybe I want to see someone's country, maybe I want to see their device type, and maybe I want a timestamp for that, as well as perhaps the language that their phone was set to. And I'm going to specify that I only want the events, let's say, from the last 24 hours. So I'll say that event time is greater than and I'm going to use relative date, so this will always be updated. So if I check this tomorrow, it will represent today's data as an example. So I'm going to pull the last 24 hours using the relative date option here. And maybe I'll also add event type. Great. Now I hit continue, run this query, and I'm able to see from all my Amplitude data the stream of events that have happened with my users and exactly when they happened. I could also add other metadata if I'd like that will allow me to see exactly other attributes that may exist for my users. So this is how we connect Amplitude to BigQuery to stream all of our events to BigQuery. And then we are able to query all of that data on mobile, iOS, Android, as well as the web using Zing Data. Hopefully this was helpful, and I'll put links into the documentation in the description below. You can download Zing Data for free or learn more at zingdata.com, zingdata.com. Thanks.